A helicopter crashed in the North Pole. The only survivor was this man. He has been trapped here for a whole month. In order to survive, he took the wreckage of the plane, transformed into a warm cabin, and then made a simple fish hook with wires, sitting near these 3 ice caves every day, waiting for the fish to bite. There are many fish under the ice cave. In order to leave here early, he made a simple refrigerator out of a plastic box. Store the fish you catch as food reserves for the next long journey. In this cold Arctic, he doesn't have any tools to get fire. I can only eat fish fillet raw every day to maintain the energy of the body. Besides fishing, he has another task every day. That's holding the signal on the plane. Go outside and probe, looking for passing planes. The red light on the equipment is on, which means there are no planes nearby. If the green light is on, it means that there are planes passing nearby. He always carries a flare around, always ready to send a distress signal. In the open snow, he left a huge distress signal. In this way, he spent 30 days here. This morning, Kevin accidentally found a huge footprint on the ground. Don't think too much. This must have been left by the polar bear. Kevin was so frightened that he hurried back to the cabin. Observe the situation outside. The second day, he came to the hillside again to detect the signal. After a while, a big black cloud suddenly appeared in the sky. This means that there will be a terrible snowstorm. He hurriedly packed up his equipment and prepared to return to the cabin to escape. Just then, the green light on the device suddenly came on. Kevin hurriedly looks around. Sure enough, a helicopter really appeared not far away. He hurried to the highest place nearby. He opened the signal bomb in his hand and kept waving it. Finally, the helicopter found Kevin. He flew in the direction of Kevin. He thought he could finally be saved this time, but a terrible scene happened. The man was trapped in the Arctic for 30 days. He finally waited for a helicopter. I thought I could be saved this time, but something unimaginable happened. Because the snowstorm came so suddenly, the helicopter was disturbed by strong wind and suddenly lost control. Kevin helplessly watched the helicopter crash on the ground. He hurried over to check the situation. Unfortunately, the driver has stopped breathing. Kevin hurried in again to check the female passengers behind him. Fortunately, I'm still alive, but he was seriously injured. Kevin found the first aid kit on the plane, helped Lena sew up the wound on her stomach. Another simple bandage was made. Lena is still in a coma. However, her life is not in danger for the time being. Then Kevin found the gas tank lighter in the helicopter and a box of instant noodles. Kevin can't manage that much anymore. Uncooked instant noodles. He actually took a big bite. It's really hard to imagine what it would be like to have an undercooked instant noodles. The snowstorm finally stopped. Kevin wrote a distress signal on the wreckage. Then he made a sled out of the helicopter door, pulled Lena back to her cabin. He put the injured Lena on the bed. I fed her some water. Lena finally woke up. Kevin told her that the pilot had died. When Lena heard the news, she passed out again. Kevin returned to the helicopter. Bring back everything you can use. Then the pilot was buried. At night, he lit the gas stove. Having been trapped for 30 days, he finally felt warm. Just then, he heard voices outside. It turned out that a fish had taken the bait. Kevin made a pot of instant noodles in fish soup. Then she fed it to Lena one by one. But Lena's eyes were full of despair because she never wanted to accept the fact that her husband died. The next day, Kevin made a decision. That is to give up the idea of waiting for rescue. I decided to find my way out of here. He mapped out a route, then put Lena on the sledge. With Lena and her luggage, she embarked on the road to survival. It's not far from where they've just walked. A hill blocked their way. If you bypass the hill, we need to walk dozens of miles. Kevin is going to pull Lena over the hill. He stood on the top of the mountain, pulling at the rope, but he failed again and again. No way out. Kevin had to take a detour. At night, Kevin found a small cave. They are going to spend the night here. Kevin cooked another pot of fish soup and instant noodles. As a result, the fragrance attracted a polar bear. It put its huge head into the cave. Fortunately, the hole is small. Kevin is not in danger for the time being, but the polar bear's next behavior. Kevin was completely flustered. This polar bear keeps digging holes at the foot of the mountain. Kevin, see, things are not good. He lit the flare in his hand. Then he slipped it into the mouth of the polar bear. The polar bear has lived for so many years. I've never seen smoke. It turned and ran away. Kevin, who has survived, continues to take Lena on the road. Unfortunately, they were caught in a snowstorm again, but there is no place around to escape the wind and snow. Kevin nailed the sled into the snow. A temporary tent was erected in place. A few hours later, the blizzard is over at last. The two men climbed out of the snow and went on their way, so they walked for several days. Unfortunately, Kevin has severe frostbite on his fingers, and Lena's wound also showed a large area of infection. Her high fever has caused her to go into a coma. At this time, Lena could no longer eat or drink. Kevin knows, in this cold Arctic, if the wound is infected, Lena must be unlucky. He decided to leave Lena and go on his own, because only in this way can he leave here faster. Then Kevin packed his bags and was ready to leave. But just then, he suddenly fell into a hole. Unfortunately, Kevin got his foot stuck in a crack in the stone. No matter how hard he tries, the stuck foot still can't be pulled out. He looked hopelessly at the sky. Perhaps the suffering he is now experiencing. It should be the punishment for abandoning your partner. Kevin once again strengthened his faith. Be sure to get out of here. He gritted his teeth and pulled out his foot with pain. Then he climbed to the ground with all his strength. Kevin told Lena in tears. He'll take Lena out of here, even if they both end up buried in this piece of ice and snow, and he won't leave Lena. After that, Kevin dragged his injured left leg, pulled Lena on the road. In this way, they left for 3 days and 3 nights. At this time, Kevin had exhausted his strength. He knows it's impossible to leave here. Then he used his last strength, climbed to this mountain. I want to see if there is a way out behind the mountain. Unexpectedly, just as he climbed to the top of the mountain, a helicopter passed right here. Kevin saw hope again. He hurriedly pushed Lena up the steep slope. Then he opened the signal bomb and shouted for help. But the helicopter in the distance didn't find him. To attract attention, Kevin took off his coat, point and wave it vigorously. But the helicopter still flew away slowly towards the distance. Kevin is desperate. He slowly picked up Lena. Then tell her, I've tried my best. Kevin's tears ran down Lena's face. He took Lena's hand. Then he slowly lay down, silently waiting for the fate to judge him. Just when they had lost consciousness, a helicopter in the distance finally spotted them. They were saved.